You nailed it, dude. I didn't even know this field existed, Matt.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I started banging on doors in my junior year looking for an internship position in engineering, civil engineering particularly. I'm across this environmental consulting firm that a friend of a friend worked at and ultimately got the best offer to go intern with them that I realized, holy crap, there's this nichey little world within a tangential area of what I've studied that's really, really cool. And I did that summer. And about 4 months before I graduated my senior year, I had an offer letter from them that was paying somewhere around 10 to 12,000 a year more than any civil engineering firm was offering. So you could say I kind of stumbled into the field of environmental consulting engineering.
Welcome to the show, and it's the last show of season 5. We're wrapping it up for the summer and the fall. We will be back in February with another wonderful season of The Edge of Excellence, and we're going to go out with a bang. We brought forth an angel, Hirad Emadi, and if you want to crush it, Hirad will tell you how. He's going to talk about how to find out what you're great at. It's more than just what you're passionate at. What are you great at, and how will that affect the world? We're going to get into the intricacies of starting a business. What do you look for? When do you do it? How do you start with raging fans? And Hirad's going to talk a lot about the importance of grind. If you don't have a work ethic, it's going to be difficult. Welcome to the last show, episode number 140. Hirad Emadi's here. Welcome to the Edge of Excellence. Well, Hirad, thank you for taking some time away from saving the planet, saving our county, saving our state, and saving our community to share your insight with the 20-somethings of the world. Welcome to the Edge of Excellence.
Thank you, Matt. Your enthusiasm already brought a smile to my face, dude. I love it.
Good. This is the last show of the season, episode number 140. I've been waiting for this one a long time, and we're going to get deep into it. People are going to love this because Hirad is co-founder and CEO and president of Innovative Construction Solutions, which sounds like, what is Innovative Construction Solutions? Let me tell you, they save the environment. Nuclear reactor meltdown, they've cleaned it up. They invent things. They're engineers in the environmental cleaning and environmental protection area. They build systems. They built a system that pumps jet fuel out of the ground under airports. Think about it. The hoses leak. Where does the jet fuel go? Right on top of the groundwater. They invented a pump and a system to get that jet fuel out, get the vapors out. Before we get into all that and achieving balance, wait a second. All this engineering, all this design, all this craziness, wonderful kids, wonderful wife, and balance. We're going to get into how would you ever do that if you're in your 20s. But before we do, we got to get deep into Hirad's definition of excellence. I don't even know why I asked this question anymore, Hirad, but no one's ever answered it the same. So I'm asking you, what is your definition of excellence?
All right. Excellence to me is greatness, Matt. Best in class. It's so very difficult to achieve that when you see it, you'll know it. And one thing that I've always said, when you see it, you'll know it, and you must always appreciate the work that goes into achieving it, because it's hard to achieve. I told you early on that, like in business, for me, excellence is a commitment to continuous improvement and innovation, to living your values every day. And a commitment to achieving the highest possible standards in every aspect of the work. In my personal life, excellence to me is becoming the best version of myself, man. Whether it's physical, mental, intellectual, or emotional, and that's a daily challenge. You got to work on it.
Interesting that you say best in class. Got it. When you see it, you know it. Get that too. Appreciate the work that goes in it, which is interesting because our audience is 20-somethings. And if you're listening right now, I'm throwing, I got to do it. Yellow card. Why is my fuzzy thing not working? Yellow card. Hirad gets a yellow card because I think that sometimes this age group, and I hate to be insulting to the 20-somethings of the world, I don't think they always appreciate the hard work that goes into the excellence, maybe of their parents and their parenting. And I know your kids. I'm a big fan of Dara. She went to school with my son. That Arya, I remember the Legos and that Taj Mahal and the Death Star, that crazy Death Star he built. And I love Star Wars. I know that he's a genius. I just don't know if they get the hard work that goes into what you and Risa have done as parents, what you've done with your business. And I just a second ago, walked back into my rental house here in Three Arch Bay, Orange County, California, after having lunch with, you'll never guess who, Viken's daughter.
Oh, yeah.
Viken Ohanesian's daughter. And I do that every once in a while. I have dinner with or lunch with our friends' kids. And we were talking about my kids. And she's like, yeah, I don't think they really understand the financial commitment that a parent makes. I don't think they understand, the kids understand. I don't think I understood until I was 25, and what Natalia's like 28 right now, but she's got a business and she's out there getting it going. And I should have told her, Natalia, if you're listening to this, I hope you do, hit up Hirad for some investment money. She's just launching her Beacon. I know you're not listening. Oh, by the way, I'm like taking videos. Get your dad to invest. I'm just totally messing up his life. But she hit me up with that. Like, do they really understand and appreciate the work that goes into it? So we're going to pause for a second. If you're in the car listening on 1.5 speed, like we always want you to, do you appreciate the hard work that goes into excellence? I don't know that the Gen Zers really get how much effort it takes to be excellent. There's this impatience. They want to be CEO by tomorrow. They want to retire by the time they're 30. It takes hard work. And Hirad, I've known you for a long time. I went to your office the other day. I think you love the hard work. I think you love what you do.
I do love what I do. And I've said this to my kids, Matt, in the most recent past. I said, cream rises to the top, right? Got all these smart kids. They all want to be CEOs. They all want to be successful. They all do great in school. They rise to the top, by getting great jobs because they have great grades. And then what happens in the workforce? The guy that works the hardest, the guy that grinds, that's the next step in rising to the next level. Yeah. There's so much talent out there. There's so many of these kids that are out there that are qualified. They're super smart. The only way you separate yourself and you accomplish that excellence is by grinding, work hard, stay disciplined, stay focused.
And it's funny that you say that, because I would say that you and I know people that aren't as smart and aren't as talented, that have smoked the geniuses, 100%. Smoked the Harvard kids, smoked 100%. The Stanford kids.
100%
hard work.
Absolutely right.
Well, we're going to get into your hard work, and we're going to figure out what it took. We're going to get into civil engineering at UCI. We're going to get into exactly what environmental remediation is and how the heck do you clean up a nuclear reactor meltdown. And we're going to get into philanthropy. That's what I was at his office for. Man, the dude's doing a lot for society. And we're going to get into raising beautiful kids, because I remember, and this conversation a long time ago, when your kids went to boarding school, you're like, hey, I'm going to see my kids more than you see your kids. And I think you were right. You have such quality time with your kids. And I watch your Instagram and all the awesome things you do. We're going to get in there, but I got to go way back before we do. And we got to deal with high school. And where did you go to high school?
Interesting story.
I know this is going to be a good one.
I migrated to this amazing country.
At what age?
At the age of 13 and a half. I left
right before high school.
Yeah. So I left Iran as a 7th grader, Matt. And I show up to a place called Vancouver, Washington.
Oh, wow. Beautiful place.
Right across the river from Portland, Oregon. I don't speak a lick of English. And I go to this testing center and I take this test. It's just a math test because I don't read English. I don't speak English. And they put me 9th grade.
Uh-oh.
I left Iran in 7th grade. A short, skinny, scrawny 7th grader leaving Iran And I end
And
up,
there was a ton of Iranians. So you had like a full home away from home in Vancouver, Washington, right?
I,
Wrong.
I stood out like a sore thumb, bro.
Why would you go? I always wonder about this. Like my friend Sanjay from India, and I think you met him.
I have.
They went to someplace in Alabama. Like, why wouldn't you go to LA where there's
My
tons of Persian people?
my dad's sister lived in Vancouver, Washington. So they
Oh,
felt
okay.
that's the place we need to go.
So you had family there, but
Yeah.
there was probably what two Iranian families.
I literally think we were the only two.
Yeah. Wait,
Honest.
this was long after the revolution, though.
This was 6 years after the revolution. This was back in '84.
So you lived in the revolution
Oh yeah.
and
Oh
you
yeah.
lived through the revolution.
And the war and the Iran-Iraq war.
Did I ever tell you about what my dad did during the revolution?
Mm-mm.
So I was living in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where there's also no Iranian people. And we were watching it on TV. And I must have been, we were 8 years old when the revolution happened, right? 79. And I was watching it and getting the propaganda, the American propaganda. And, the information, if you're listening right now, there's a lot of wars going on. You're getting propaganda. You're getting your news from TikTok. You're getting propaganda. There's 54 pro-Palestinian TikToks for every one pro-Israeli. You're getting manipulated. So we were getting manipulated back then too. And I was scared of Iranian people. And I said something to my dad, and my dad came in, and I don't know how soon after he said, we're going to have a couple ladies move in with us for a week. I've never told you this.
No.
And I said, okay, that sounds good. Who are they? He said, they're Iranian. They're fleeing the revolution. And I said, whoa. We're going to have Iranians come live in our house, Dad? Those are terrorists. He says, that's why we're doing it. You're going to meet them and you're going to get to know them. And my dad literally had 2 Iranian women live in our house for a week because he wanted to make sure that I wasn't prejudiced. How unbelievably great is that?
That is amazing.
Can you believe that?
I love your dad.
Oh, I do too. Well, obviously. So you stuck through 6 years after the revolution, and a lot of people left in the revolution. And what made you guys leave and come to Vancouver?
Well, so the Iran-Iraq war was the camel that broke the camel's back, the straw that broke the camel's back. They were taking kids around 15, 14 and a half, 15 to train them for the Iran-Iraq war, and then would throw them on the front line.
Yeah.
So when the threat of that was looming is when my parents decided it's time to leave. And it was really unfortunate because they had the opportunity to leave early on. And I still remember this dinner conversation, this debate between my mom and dad. Should we stay? Should we go? My dad was an American citizen. He went to college here. He could have just literally bought plane tickets and bolted. And they made the unfortunate decision to stay back, which changed the course of their life, ultimately.
They stayed back for that 6 years, or you came by yourself?
No, they stayed back for those 6 years, and we all left together.
Okay, you all left together.
Yeah,
So-
but by then, Matt, everything was done, right? There's the currency was worthless. They didn't have anything at that point.
Just pause for a second if you're listening in the car right now. And I mean, man, things are bad these days. And I mean, when I was a kid, I was worried about Russia blowing us up. You're in your 20s these days. You got Russia, Korea, China, the Ukraine war, the Israeli crisis. You've got the political issues. And I get it. It is rough. And I do like to pause once in a while and say, if you need help, get help. And our company, by the way, I don't know if you know this, we have a psychiatrist on staff that people can use, Dr. Dorothy. It's amazing how many people have reached out to her and what a wonderful service she's providing to people. There's help out there. If you're in college, you have, I think, up to 15 hours of free help. So reach out and get help. It's a tough time, but just pause for a second and think about that situation. You're in a country, revolution breaks out, a war breaks out, they're conscripting 15-year-olds, and you have to leave your entire life to save your family and go to some random place where you happen to have a sister, a relative, and bring your whole family. So you show up at 13 years old, go straight into high school. Like, by the way, if you're listening right now, you're in high school, you're about to be done with the worst 4 years of your life. No matter how great high school is, and I had a great high school year, and I had great college years, it gets better and better and better. But all this Instagram and pictures of butts and all this crap you guys are dealing with, it's pretty shitty. And thank God you didn't have Instagram back in Vancouver, Washington. And Vancouver, Washington's beautiful, but man, that's a strange place to land. So you show up, you can't speak English, you only know math, and you're now in high school in Vancouver, Washington. How'd that go for you?
It went as good as it could possibly go. I have to tell you, the fact that I ended up in this place called Vancouver, Washington, maybe one of 5 people with dark hair in the whole high school, in ESL the first 6 months before they kicked me out. All that helped me assimilate so very rapidly and quickly. I can't emphasize how beautiful it all worked out. And despite what people will tell you, or what people might think, as one of 4 or 5 Iranians, right, in this little town, I was never messed with. People,
you know what?
Awesome.
You know what's awesome. You know what's so weird about that? So I grew up in New Mexico, and there's Native Americans, there's Mexican Americans, and there's white Americans in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And my friend Mira, she's like the only Indian person. And then there was a couple Sikh people, and there's only a couple African American people. And because of the lack of size to the demographics, there was really no prejudice amongst anything but Native Americans, Mexican Americans, and white people. So those 3 groups, because they were the big groups, would fight and have all the racism. But the small groups just kind of fit in with everybody. And I think there's something to be said for when you have large population base, you might get that prejudice, and you're such a small population base, you could assimilate. Pretty interesting that you, and I don't know, I'm making shit up, but you also, did you just say you were in English as a second language for 6 months? You picked up English in 6 months?
Literally, dude, they kicked me out of ESL in 6 months. The reason that sticks in my mind is because there was a group of about 23, 24 Vietnamese kids that were in that same ESL class year after year after year after year. I show up as the only non-Vietnamese kid in the same ESL class, and I'm asked to leave in the same year. So yeah, it was.
And so you picked it up that fast. So you're clearly a bright kid. Pretty difficult.
It's also because there was no other community, right?
Oh, the Vietnamese kids had Vietnamese community.
They had their community. So they were just
they go
out.
home and they're speaking Vietnamese. You go home and you're playing with kids that they don't understand what you're talking when you're talking Farsi.
I'm watching TV. I'm trying to read. I'm playing with the neighborhood kids. Yeah. So it actually worked out really well.
So does that mean you graduated high school at like 16 years old in 1990?
I graduated when I was 17.
17 in 1989, did you graduate?
Oh, wait, 88.
Whoa! So you're the exact same age as me and graduated from high school 2 years before me. 2 years before my great friend, Nicole McMacken. Shout out to Nicole McMacken, who also has a podcast that we should schedule you on, and went to the same college as Hirad. So you're up in Vancouver, Washington. Does your family still doesn't live up there, do they?
No, we moved from Vancouver 3.5 years later.
So you finished high school in Vancouver, though?
I finished high school here at San Clemente High, last 6 months.
Oh, my God. First, you move out of your country to a whole new country as a young kid going into high school. Then halfway through your senior year, you get moved again. Why? Dad had a job change?
So he dropped us off at Vancouver and went back to figure some things out, Matt. And it was when he finally came here permanently that we rented a U-Haul and drove ourselves down to Southern California as fast as we could. We a funny story. We stayed the night at the first night in Southern California at a Holiday Inn. Woke up the next day, the U-Haul was gone.
No, someone stole your U-Haul.
Someone stole the U-Haul
with everything you had in it.
Everything, including all pictures, all pictures. So crazy, interesting welcome.
It's not a funny story. That's a horrible story. Wow. Oh my God. I when I drove Jake to Tulane, we had all this stuff in his car, and we were going to stay in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where my in-laws lived, and they had gotten COVID, so we couldn't stay there. So I said, okay, Jake, just find us a hotel. It's got to be a hotel with secure parking. There is no hotel, only motels between Albuquerque, New Mexico and Dallas, Texas. We drove 22 hours, 1,440 miles in one day so that wouldn't happen. So we wouldn't get all Jake's stuff stolen. And I was so excited. I think I probably told you that, oh, I get to drive across the country with my son. He was going to go by himself. Last minute, I say I'm coming. I get all this time together. He slept for 19 of the 22 hours. Like, what is going on here? Okay, so wow, that's just not a funny story. You moved to San Clemente, California, which is also interesting. Not Irvine, not LA, not Beverly Hills, not these population centers of Persian people. And you do your last 6 months. When did you apply to college?
I don't know. I think it was around the same time, Matt.
Yeah, so you applied at the normal time and you just happened to apply to UCI?
Yeah, well, yeah, I had to commute. In my mind, I was
you were
commuting.
moving down, so you knew you wanted to go to UCI.
Yeah, yep.
Did you know you were kind of special to get into UCI from out of state at the time? Did you know that was kind of a big deal?
No, I had no clue. And I'm not sure how special it was back then.
Here's how special it was back then. Less than 10% of the UC system was from out of state back then. They expect 90% of the students, 93% at UC Santa Barbara were from in-state. To get into the UC system from out of state, you had to have better test scores, better grades, better everything. So you must have been kicking butt in high school. You didn't even know you were kicking butt?
No. Clueless.
All these years, I thought the brains came from Risa. That's what I thought. Oh my God. Your kids got it from both sides. I can't even believe it. Those lucky kids. Hopefully those kids can appreciate the work that went into the formation of their brains. Perfect selection of smart parents. So you go to UCI, you just kind of accidentally end up at a UC school. You didn't even know what was going on.
Kind of. You could say that. Yeah,
I mean, that's how I ended up in Santa Barbara. I just wanted to get the hell out of New Mexico, and I went to the beach in Santa Barbara and said, "Here I go." So you're at UCI based because you wanted to commute from San Clemente. And what made you decide to go into engineering? Right away, you knew to be in engineering. How'd you figure that out?
I was pursuing biology. I was going to be a doctor in my mind, and I pushed myself into working at the San Clemente emergency room. The little emergency room right across from where my parents lived, I lived. And it took 2 nights before I said, what am I thinking? This isn't for me. And I bolted, did a U-turn, went to civil engineering.
I was talking to Sashir in an earlier recording, and we were talking about knowing what to do and what not to do. It's a lot of time easier to figure out what you don't want to do than what you do want to do. I wanted to be a doctor. Turns out I pass out at blood sometimes. So what was it about the emergency room?
Oh, man. Okay. So first night, this woman gets stabbed in the eye by a pair of scissors. And she walks in.
With the scissors in her eye?
Oh, no. She had taken the scissor out.
Okay.
But it was a mess. But I think the second night is what really got me. An accident, 3 exits. Prior to the exit, Camino de Estrella, where the hospital was, where my parents lived. 5 people in a car. A 3-year-old survived. Brother, sister dead. Mom and dad dead. And we have to talk to the 3-year-old. It was
as gnarly. A volunteer, you had to talk to the 3-year-old?
And hang out with the 3-year-old. And it was just gnarly.
And did the 3-year-old have any idea what was going on? Just where's mom? Where's dad?
She was still banged up, but where's mom?
Juniper Sierra exit? Juniper Sierra?
No, it was well, I don't know where the accident took place. I was told it was only a couple exits down from Camino de Estrella.
Oh, wow.
It was south of Camino de Estrella.
Whoa. Okay. So if you're listening right now, there's people that would be into those circumstances that they're thriving. They realize this is my calling. I'm helping that kid. I'm helping the lady. I'm calming the situation down. I'm comforting it. And those people might go into medicine. Me, I'm laying on the floor passed out. And Hirad, you had an emotional connection that created pain in the long run. You decided, I can't deal with this on a day-by-day basis. There's too much pain here for me.
Matt, a little bit of that, a little bit of blood, like you.
Oh, really?
I don't even look at my own blood being extracted. I look the other way. I'm 52 years old.
And by the way, it's time for me to just let everybody know we are men's men. We are as manly as it gets in that stereotype, if I could say that. Just happened to pass out and not handle things like that very well. All right. So no longer a doctor. How did you come up with engineer?
So my dad's a civil engineer, and I saw I saw him do his thing on project sites in Iran. I had exposure to it here and there, and I thought it would be really cool to build shit.
Did anything, he's a civil engineer in Iran and it translates over to America and he's a civil engineer here. My mom was a nurse in England, came to America and had to redo the whole nursing school thing because it didn't apply here. Was there anything about the ability to move from country to country that was attractive to you or no?
No, no.
No.
I mean, like civil engineering, and outside of getting certified as a professional licensed engineer in certain states, it's all the same.
Yeah, same
Yeah.
in certain countries, right? You
Yep.
just take the test. But that wasn't attractive. Okay, so you go to school, you realize after this volunteer job, I can't do the blood thing. I can't do this pain thing. You decide, well, I see what my dad does. And if you're listening right now, there's some good examples around you. My dad was a teacher. I wanted to be a teacher. So I just taught on my own terms. I have a business that teaches business. My mom was a nurse. My grandfather was a doctor. I knew I couldn't go that way because I passed out at blood. And same thing, when I was 12 years old, I went and saw surgery, brain surgery, passed out in the operating room and became like part of the problem. Like, okay, that's not going to work out for me. So you can look around. What do your parents do? What do your friends' parents do? What do your aunts and uncles do? And then go talk to them. So I'm assuming you talked to well, you said you explored with him. You went and checked out some of the things he was building. You'd been to his office. You're putting the time in. If you're listening right now, you put the time in to explore and you get these gut feelings. So you had this gut feeling that you want to build things. It's cool to build things.
Definitely, definitely.
And it's interesting that you went into environmental remediation. And I know you build things. I know you design or your team designed the system to figure out how to pump the jet fuel out of the underground lake underneath LA. I know you design things to treat soil. And people don't know this, but a lot of times you'll be building a neighborhood like our friend Sean Baldwin. You know Sean Baldwin.
Oh, yeah.
We like to mention Sean Baldwin on this podcast. He's a nice guy. He just happens to be the luckiest human being on the planet. And when all of a sudden he just gets this giant business handed to him, not one that he has to build from the ground up like me and you, he starts to build an entire city near where we live and starts to cut into the dirt, and the dirt's toxic. Now, maybe the dirt was toxic from just dinosaurs dying in the dirt. And I think that's what it was. It was like some animal remains that had created this entire oil layer just in the middle of some California hill that just happens sometimes. Maybe people have dumped stuff. Maybe it's natural, maybe it's not. But you're developing ways to remove that stuff and you're figuring out ways to do it on site. I know Sean was telling me, that Portola Hills that they built. Did you know? I don't know if you worked on this. They had to cart the dirt away, like millions of tons of dirt, truckload. I think it took them a couple years to put the dirt in trucks to get it away. And it's this toxic dirt. And then they got to do something with it. You can't just put it in a pile somewhere else. So you're figuring out ways to do it on the site and treat the dirt on the site. That couldn't have happened in college. You're going to build bridges and stuff like that in college.
You nailed it, dude. I didn't even know this field existed, Matt.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I started banging on doors in my junior year looking for an internship position in engineering, civil engineering particularly. I'm across this environmental consulting firm that a friend of a friend worked at, and ultimately got the best offer to go intern with them, that I realized, holy crap, there's this niche-y little world within a tangential area of what I've studied that's really, really cool. And I did that summer. And about 4 months before I graduated my senior year, I had an offer letter from them that was paying somewhere around $10,000 to $12,000 a year more than any civil engineering firm was offering. So you could say I kind of stumbled into the field of environmental consulting engineering.
Stumbled is an interesting word. Maybe fell across the finish line, stumbled across the finish line because it's your junior year. You didn't wait until after you graduated. You started looking for jobs. And how many jobs had you had before that junior year?
I had a paper route when I first moved to the States. I worked illegally because I was underaged at a racetrack in Vancouver, Washington every summer. you'd get a kick out of this. I ran sort of like an Airstream. Think of an Airstream cafe
Yeah.
where I sold only corn dogs and 7-Up. But I poured the corn. I made the corn dog. I made the batter. I fried the corn dog. I poured the 7-Up, and I collected your cash, and I gave you your food. A one-man show.
You couldn't get water. You couldn't get Coca-Cola. 7-Up.
7-Up. 7-Up because 7-Up was used in the batter to make the corn dog. And it was a one-man show, so you couldn't, no options. And there was a line out the back the entire day, 8 hours every day.
So paper route, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week in the summer.
Summer, yep.
And then you come down to, you did that, and then you come down to Irvine, and you get a job in college too?
When I first moved here, I worked at a pizza shop, worked my way up to sort of co-managing the place. And then when I went after the big bucks during college, I became a union boy and worked at Ralph's, and ultimately Lucky's.
Union. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 jobs, and then your first internship. And, we started off by saying, constant improvement, high standards. There's no replacement for work ethic. The old Scott Olivet saying that I say on this show all the time, there's always someone smarter. There's always someone better. Make sure there's no one working harder. Now, you may have been doing it out of need. I mean, your dad's an engineer, but I'm assuming coming from another country, it takes a few weeks or months or maybe even years to get your feet on the ground and get going with the income. And so you've had this experience before you go knock on doors. Then you said you knocked on doors. You didn't knock on a door. So I just want to pause because I do help young people with their job search. And I try to convey, and there's a podcast on the job hunt. I don't know what the episode is, but it's in season 5 where we talk about how much time it takes. It takes 50 to 100 hours to figure out what industry you want to go in if you don't know. Lots of research. Start early. Start your sophomore year. Check it out, an hour a week. Maybe it's junior year, 2 hours a week. Have an independent study because it's 100 hours just to figure out what you want to try first. And then each job's a couple hours of research online and writing a cover letter and updating your resume. So you're looking, if you got to apply to 50 jobs, you're looking at 200 hours to get that first job. So you've knocked on doors, you put the time in, and you stumble across something that you said tangential to your studies. Like you don't think of environmental cleanup as civil engineering, really. You think of other things, right?
There's hydraulics involved, there's statics involved, there's soil involved. So it is truly tangential. It's right there. I mean, when you think about folks that build wastewater treatment plants, we're building miniaturized scaled groundwater pump and treat systems.
Why did you get into civil engineering? How does someone that's it like Wyatt Atkins, he's into making things. How does he decide to go into civil engineering? He just won a robotics contest. How does he go into civil engineering instead of the robotics that he's maybe passionate about? How do you choose which type of engineering?
For me, it was obvious. You got mechanical, you got electrical, you got civil. And
structural,
computer, computer science, computer engineering. I don't know. For some reason, I don't put that in the same bucket as engineering. When I think about engineering, I'm always electrical, mechanical, civil. Okay. So for me, it was obvious. Just seeing stuff go up, ground up, building things. Although that's not technically what I do, was very interesting to me. And frankly, I never understood electrical. Electrical is still a mystery to me, Matt.
Okay. So you may start off thinking you want to be a doctor like Hirad and I did, and then you get these signs. That's not the right fit. You may not even know what you want to do. So you talk to people around you and you start to get this gut feeling. So Hirad's having this gut feeling. I like to see things go up, and not exactly what he does now. He's building things that, maybe are underground. But you like to see things go from nothing to functioning might be another way to
creation, functioning, adding value. Yeah.
I think of structural engineer. When I think of engineering, I think of structural. That's number one that comes to my mind. Maybe that's because that's the world I live in. All right. So you get out of college, or junior year, you're knocking on doors, you get an internship, and it just felt right. And then you decided, I'm going to go work for that company. What was that company called?
Called McLaren Hart, today part of the AECom family. They sold to AECom.
And that's one of the big engineering firms. And what you liked about it? Why'd you leave?
I loved the people I worked with. I loved the culture in that small community. I basically realized this is a niche business. Love the people I work with. The opportunities in that space, from my perspective at the time, were phenomenal. I mean, just like I said, my offer letter to go work for this niche tangential area of the business was significantly better than anything civil engineering firms were offering. So I jumped in and quickly rose through the ranks. And this is where things get really interesting. And maybe there's a really good lesson here for the audience. I hired people, Matt, that do what I do as a subcontractor working at McLaren Hart. So in the consulting engineering side of this environmental business, you study the ground, you study the groundwater, you model things out, you negotiate with regulatory agencies and bodies in a solve that you've designed. So we think this is the solution. You negotiate the solution, you put it on paper, someone has to go execute or implement that solution. That's when I would go and hire people like Innovative Construction Solutions. So I am on the implementation side of the business.
So at the time, you were on the design side,
exactly.
and you're using your engineering skills to actual design, and it's theoretical. We think this is going to work, and then other engineers say, hey, we don't know if it's going to work, and that's that negotiation. You're defending your thesis. They're challenging your thesis, and in the end, you agree, okay, this will work. Let's build it, and you hire somebody that does the implementation. And so you were hiring these subcontractors and decided, I like that better, or what went down?
Well, there's two things that went down. Because the business is so niche, especially at the time, I was running into the same 3 or 4 subcontractors, right, to execute this work. And there was so much missing. I wanted a better proposal. I wanted a more detailed proposal. Tell me your assumptions, exclusions, so I don't get in trouble. I don't look like a dumbass in front of my clients. When you get out into the field, do a great job. Show up with the proper equipment. Make sure your guys know what they're doing. Make sure you have proper supervision. You have proper health and safety. There was so much missing from my perspective that I quickly recognized an opportunity to build a different kind of environmental construction company. A, and then B, maybe even more important, Matt, I loved the contracting construction side of the business. The risk reward on that side of the business was far more thrilling to me than billing hours, billing fees, which is what you do as a consultant.
So you figure I can do this cheaper, faster, better. And you find all these pain points. I was talking to Sashir earlier. It's funny, I've done these podcasts with all of our friends. Sashir today. I was talking to Sashir today, and we were talking about pain points and solving the pain points. Actually, I was talking to my buddy Darton Case today, because I record on Fridays, about pain points. And can you discover, if you want to be an entrepreneur, first, you got to have some guts. Second of all, you got to have this awareness that we're looking around, we're seeing things. Oh, that person does that really well. That person doesn't do that well. Here's my pain points. So you're aware of other people's pain points, your pain points, what's out on the market. You're kind of looking around. You have this vision of cheaper, faster, better. And then you realize, wait a second, I really like the actual contracting side where I put the boots on the ground and I tighten the bolts and make mistakes and undo. I want more than just design. And I definitely want more than my time being billed out for X amount per hour. I want to leverage my time with other people's time and with materials and with design changes and with execution speed and process improvements. And so you realize, wait a second, that's for me. But then how the hell do you start a business doing that? That seems crazy.
Well, so maybe I took a step in between when the guy that held the contractor's license for McLaren Hart because you have to have a license, right? As an engineering consulting firm, you still have to have a license, even to subcontract the doers.
Yeah.
So when that guy was retiring, I raised my hand. I said, I'm going to take the exam for the company. I'm going to be the registered managing employee that holds the license. I did that. And it wasn't more than 2 years into that where I put in my notice to go out on my own.
So they had to get a new RME.
They did. They did.
Right.
Yep.
And that's not an easy test. So to get the contractor's test license, you have to take a test. You have to have 4 years of experience in the field. Then you have to take a test. You have to study for it. So there's a little bit of an effort there too. You're going a little bit above and beyond on the effort. Back to that thing. Make sure no one's working harder than you. So you take the test. You're the RME for McLaren Hart, which you've got a little bit more on your resume. And by the way, if you have the contracting license, you can rent it out for 25, 50 grand a year as the RME because you're taking a risk with your license. They're using your license. And so you all of a sudden just start up a business, get that fancy office that you have, $100 million of the business rolls in and good to go on vacation?
No, not quite that way.
That's how everybody wishes it happened, though. So
know.
Instead, it's a 20-year story, right?
It's a 25-year story for us. We just celebrated our 25th in April. So I realized early on, Matt, that I needed a construction guru because I came from the design engineering side, recognized what's missing, understood what we could do better and different to stand out and be excellent. And I went out and talked to my favorite subcontractor, a guy by the name of John White, who's still my partner today. And I said, this is my vision. I think we can build a different kind of construction company, provide best-in-class service, add value by being smart, not just answer the mail, right? Add value. And we're going to get a crap ton of repeat business. That's what's going to happen because I'm on this side and I'm seeing all that's missing. And if you can just backfill those voids, I'm going to just constantly call you. I'm going to go to you. I'm going to sole source you anytime I can. And a couple dinners and a couple conversations later, we formed a company, wrote our first proposal out of my kitchen in our new condo in Aliso Viejo. And sort of off we went.
Condo or apartment?
It was a condo. I had a condominium. Wow. Yeah.
Were you married?
I was. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you're adding value. You're improving the process, fixing all the pain points. And then as an entrepreneur, now I have 3 partners. I love partners. And I think, wow, how does anybody do it without partners? And I was on with Sashir and he's talking about low ego partners. Not my group. We got the highest ego partners. His worked well for 30 years, for 18 years. And then he sold for, I can't even say the numbers, but let's just say it's got a B in it. So he sells and gets all this cash because he had low ego partners. I have high ego partners. And he's sitting there going, the only reason it works is because we had low egos. Well, maybe the reason ours works is because we have high egos. You come together, the two of you, and as a business person, you have to decide, do you want to do it by yourself? Which I can't imagine doing that. I just think it's so nice to have someone to bounce an idea off of, someone to check in. But it's also recipe for disaster, right? Now there's 2 of you. Maybe you never make a decision. Maybe you disagree on decisions. How have you made your relationship work? How have you made your partnership? Give us a tip for somebody that's 23 years old or 28 years old and they're working somewhere and they have someone across the table from them that they like. How do you make sure you pick the right partner? I got one word answer. Let's see what you have.
I think you got to be willing to compromise as partners.
Ooh, that's your word, compromise. Okay, so
what's your word? What's your word?
Values. Values. Similar values. Compromise. I bet you if we compromise quicker and if I compromise more and I wasn't such an arrogant ass, our partnership would work better. You know, I think compromise is a good one.
But you did nail it. At the core of it, it's values. It's alignment in your core values. You're 100% right.
And you don't have to be aligned in the direction because the direction changes, but you have to be able to you have to have respect. And my partners and I didn't have respect for each other at first. We would second guess each other. It took a few years to get respect. And then we brought in other partners and it took a few years for them to trust and respect, but we all had the same values. And we've had partners that did like narcissists. We've had a few narcissists. They don't last long or not, people that don't work that hard. They don't last long. So the two of you wrote up your first contract in your condo kitchen. And were you already depending on that contract? Were you still working at the other place, or no, you're off on your own?
No, I put in my notice and they asked me to stay for 3 months and I accepted. So once I left. They ended up being my best customer.
Oh.
Our first large project was in fact the McLaren Heart project.
Because
we
of your values, because they knew the type of person you were.
They knew exactly what they're going to get. We worked out of my kitchen for about 3 months, Matt, before we went out and opened shop in Huntington Beach, our first office location.
And you're living in Aliso.
And living in Aliso.
Why would you not get an office right near your house?
We couldn't find the right space, and all the action in my space at the time.
Oh, because of the gas.
Yeah, all the action is in LA. So I wanted to be somewhere between LA and Orange County. All our projects, I mean, Orange County is just not that contaminated, right? There's not that many environmental issues and challenges. Too new. So all former industrial and all that action happened up there, and in the Bay Area. At the time, we weren't going to the Bay Area, so we got ourselves in Huntington Beach. A lot of sleepless nights. A lot of spending the night in the office with sleeping bags, both of us.
Really?
Oh yeah. Wow. Those were fun adventures.
Do the kids know about that?
Kids weren't around yet.
Do they know though? Have you told them?
I have. I drive the point that you've been driving on your podcast home all the time. The importance of grinding and working hard.
Importance of grinding. So how long did it take for you guys to become your overnight success?
Depends on your definition of success, but I would say we gained traction and a best-in-class reputation in this very small marketplace within 2 years, and started making some good money in 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so let's shift gears. We've got a good understanding of how you decided to become an engineer, what an engineer is, how to start a business, how to pick a partnership. But I don't know you for that. In fact, I don't know how many years I've known you. 15 years? I've known you a long time.
At least.
I had to ask Hirad the name of his company at the start of this podcast. I know that in our friend circle, a lot of people don't even have any idea what I do. And I knew what he did, but I didn't know the name of his company. I know you a little bit differently. I know you as the family man. I know you as a husband that never fights with his wife and a wife that never fights with her husband. Perfect parents, wonderful kids, great community person. I know you from the philanthropy and the community involvement and kind of the example of parenting. So you said to me earlier that one of your achievements is you finally achieved balance. Seems to me that you started off balanced. Now, you might have been working too hard, which is not too hard. You might have been working very hard and sleeping in a sleeping bag, but you were married, done really good with your wife, staying together and staying supportive and talking positive about each other and, getting through life's little challenges. How do you find balance and start a business and work hard at the same time? How do you have kids that are so spectacular and interesting and still work hard and make an impact? How do you do all that and work with Pretend City, helping the kids of our community and get all your friends involved? How are you able to do that?
Well, let's start out by letting everybody know I didn't have any balance when I first started out. Risa would literally bring food to the office Friday nights and Saturday nights. There were many nights where we would just roll
stay
up.
there and eat with you?
She would stay there and eat with me. Yeah. So
there's balance.
Well, yeah.
You fought for it.
Great partner, right? We spend many a nights in the office rolling out our sleeping bags because in the beginning, you're writing the proposal. You're going out and executing the work. Then you're invoicing it and collecting it. You're doing everything. Then you're doing BD at night, taking clients out. It's all you in the beginning. So there was no balance in the beginning, but it's what was needed in the beginning. I think my comment about finding my balance is more related to, you see a lot of guys that are always chasing the money. And that's easy to do. You could grind for the rest of your life. You could be very one-dimensional. You could just chase the money. I, for whatever reason, I'm not that guy. And I've worked hard to make sure that I give time and attention and focus to all aspects of my life and areas of my business, my personal life, my family, my friendship, my community. It's not easy to do, but it's something that drives me. It's something that I'm passionate about. Nothing against guys who want to grind forever to make a fortune. I'm just not that guy. It's easy to
I don't
fall.
know.
It's easy to fall in that trap, Matt. I think it's
I
easy to
don't
fall in that trap.
know. I don't know that the people that you and I know that have made fortunes because they were chasing the fortune. If they were grinding, I think they were grinding to be in the game. And I think of a guy whose name is Greg, and we won't say last names, but he doesn't need any more money. He's got plenty of money. There was a sandwich product that you might remember that he was involved in. And he just loves the game. He loves doing hotels. His wife loves being part of it. Or I think of, Scott from Oakley. He just loves the intellectual challenge. And it's not about the money. I find that if you are, and I know there's a couple people we know that may have chased dollars, but for the most part, I think they're chasing the game. And I don't know about you. Anytime I've tried to make money and chase the dollars, it hasn't worked. I have to be chasing what I'm good at, not just what I'm passionate about. Listen, I heard this. I stole this from somebody else. I was watching the news. It's not about what you're passionate about. It's what you're good at and you can make an impact doing, and you should love it. So if I love hanging out with people in their 20s. I don't know why. It's the weirdest thing. I'm like 97 years old internally, even though I'm only 52, but it's just like brings me energy and I can make an impact. But today I went out with Vika's daughter and she made an impact on me because I needed some feedback from her on, dealing with my daughter. And I just love that fresh way of looking at things. I love the technology knowledge. And then, I wanted to be a teacher. So it worked out. I didn't chase money.
You could be right. It could be that this balance is what I really care about and what I seek. Right?
It's interesting too, the balance. You said I didn't have it at first. I'd roll out the sleeping bags. I hope you have pictures of that. I want to see. I know you got a picture somewhere of you guys rolling out the sleeping bags. And please tell me there were couches. You were just on the nasty office floor. Were you on the floor?
No couches.
Oh, did you have pads?
We had pads. Pads.
Like camping pads?
Camping pads, yeah.
Oh my God, how uncomfortable. So first of all, we're too old to do that now. If Hirad and I went and slept on a floor on a camping pad now, we'd never wake up. But you didn't have balance then. You didn't have balance because you didn't need it. And Risa came and you had dinner with her in the office and she could drive and she could do that. And then the kids were born. And when the kids are little, it's not the same as when they're a little bit older. You found balance when the time came to have balance. And you set yourself up by sleeping on the floor and doing all you could and sprinting and sprinting and sprinting.
Right.
So when the time came, you were prepared. It's planning, it's preparing, it's thinking things through. It's that entrepreneurial vision. What do I want? What's it going to take to get there? What do I need to change right now? And then executing and being aware. So could you have totally ignored your kids and gotten a divorce and been a horrible dad and, had a successful business faster? Maybe, but probably not, I think, because I wouldn't have been friends with you. You've got other friends that wouldn't have been friends with you. So your network's different. Your contacts are different. Your customers are different because people want to spend time with like-minded individuals. So you found balance when you found it. Let's see what I missed. I know what I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you about sacrifices. So I was going to say, what sacrifice did you make that at the time you thought was going to be a horrible thing to do, but you look back and it was so awesome. And maybe it was sleeping on the mats, on the thin little foam mats in the sleeping bag. You think of something that you thought, I really don't want to do this, but I will. And you look back, you're like, that was a changing point in my life.
Yeah. So the sleeping in the office, that didn't feel like a sacrifice to me. That was exciting. It was
kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of fun, kind of awesome. I talked to Risa about this, my wife, about this earlier today, because I really needed someone to bounce this off of. And she said, look, remember that problem project that you guys ran into in Northern California? And you remember how you had to get up every Sunday and go to NorCal Sunday through Wednesday for about 3 years to solve that problem right when your brother had passed away, right when my dad had passed away, and right when we had a kindergartner and a second grader. So that went on for 3 years. And she said that was hard. And I was taken back. I'm like, oh, you're right.
You blocked it out of your mind.
I had totally forgotten about it, Matt. Yeah. Completely forgot about it. But yeah, that would go on record as maybe the biggest sacrifice.
How many times have you heard people that have had major trauma that have blocked it out of their mind?
I took the trophy for it.
Yeah, you did.
This is not the only instance. I'm good at it. I'm good at it, and we know many people. You and I, others.
You had other major trauma that you kind of blocked out of your mind that you don't want to talk about?
Yeah. I think there's stuff that I've completely blocked out, and if not for someone bringing it to my attention, it would not exist in my mind.
Yeah, I'm so fortunate. I just have none of that.
Really?
Yeah, it's so strange. And I've been to these kind of guru guys, and they come into my whatever tech group or YPO group or EO group, and they go around and they figure out you got your trauma from your dad doing this, and you have your trauma from your mom doing that, and you have your trauma from this thing that happened. And then they get to me, and it's like one guy said, I've done this with 500,000 people. There's only been 6 people that didn't have trauma that they can come back to. I just had this wonderful life with not a lot. I mean, there was a lot of suicide around me. Like my cousin died of suicide. I remember these things, but it wasn't like this major, like Joe John sitting on a rock with a machine gun in his lap, defending his sisters from their dad who beat Joe John in the head with an axe handle. I mean, holy shit. And I can say that because he wrote about it in his book, so I can share that story. But, I find that people are running from something or running to something. And after all these entrepreneurs I've met around the world, especially from the EO gig I had, most people I know that are successful entrepreneurs are running from something. They want to get away from that poverty or get away from that experience or get away. I've always been running to something. I want to be like my parents, be like my mom, be like my grandpa, be like my dad, be like those mentors I had. And I find it's maybe about 20% are in my boat, 80% are in the run from something. What does Craig Atkins say? Never waste a great chip on your shoulder. And I don't know what his story is, but you heard him say that when we were graduating into the old person's group. Like, wait a second. Yeah, I don't have I have some chips, but I don't have that trauma. So, well, that's interesting. That's pretty hardcore sacrifice. Was there things that you were doing in your 20s that you still do that you hadn't mastered in your 20s, you're starting to figure them out, but you credit your success to that thing that you started when you're in your 20s, and you're so glad you started doing whatever that was?
Other than hard work and discipline, I would say people skills, developing people skills, writing skills. I really want to put that out there. I took a liking to writing and took a couple courses at UCI. One technical writing, one just standard writing. That has helped me tremendously in my career as a leader or otherwise. I think it's really important to be able to communicate.
Yeah, and I got a poli-sci and a history degree.
There you go.
I'm in the same boat. Well, Hirad, I really appreciate you making time to come on and be the last episode of the season. We end on a high note with a lot of fantastic input. I do want to just close on, man, it's nice to know balanced Hirad. We've had such a nice time together, going around the world, sharing philanthropic focuses, talking about our kids, sharing insight. Our kids knew each other from school and from going on trips together. I really love Balanced Hirad. And I think, I'm glad I wasn't there for the sleeping on Matt's part. I thank you so much for making time to come on the Edge of Excellence today.
Matt, I love you. I really thank you for bringing up what you brought up about being passionate. You don't have to always be in the pursuit of what you're passionate about. Mm-hmm. You said it perfectly. Success can and does often produce passion. Oh, yeah. When you work hard and when you're successful, even if it's not something you were initially passionate about, it's amazing what happens.
Especially if you're in your 20s. You don't
It's
even, there's
amazing
a
what
world of
happens.
passions you haven't even found yet.
And amazing what happens. So that's another great nugget. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Thank you.